can we can broadcast for 8 hours. Let's hope it doesn't take that long.
I'll mute myself.
If we go 8 hours, then we've definitely failed. All right. So thanks everybody. I guess this is sort of a continuation of the work I was to some degree trying to do whilst at TypeSafe to kind of reboot the community stuff, and I know that it's been a key issue with lots of people that we want to try and get some faith back in the SIP slip process or the SIP process, and also encourage library development. And so this seems like it might be a good way to do that. I think this is going to be a really short meeting, and I think that, well, let's go through them. So first of all, meeting time. Does this work for everybody if we do this like second Thursday of every month?
Works for me, yeah.
Yeah, works for me.
Yeah.
Right. That was nice and easy. And is once a month too much or too little or just right?
I think we can gain some experience with once a month, but initially it sounds like a good cadence.
Okay, yeah, I think if nothing else, we probably like each month would go through, and I guess this is the next point: responsibilities. I think one of the things that became apparent when I was looking into this is that people have lost a little bit of faith or confidence in the SIP process, because it looks like there are SIPs that have sort of been shoved off to the side and nothing's been done to them for a while. And so one of the things I think might be worth doing is during these is to run through the list of SIPs and slips, SIPs and slips for now, and just see if any of them need to be moved to another state. Like, I don't know what the exact criteria would be. We can discuss that on lists and stuff. But like maybe after a couple of months of inactivity, they move into a dormant state for a bit, and the author gets an email to say, this is dormant until something happens on it, and we'll revive it. And if it stays dormant for like a year, we'll say it's dead due to inactivity, and another SIP will have to be, submitted to get it moving again or something. Just something like that, so that when people go and see that list, they actually see stuff that's happening there, rather than been abandoned.
Yeah, I think that's.
I'm going to.
A good first thing to do, to go through the list of SIPs that we have and decide what their status should be.
Okay.
So also with meeting frequency, I just want to put out there that we should wait to evaluate if once a month is too little.
To get it moving again or something. Just something like that, so that when people go and see that list, they actually think stuff that's
I think Martin is watching us live, so there's a delay, and it's feeding back through his speakers. So
I think that's.
Yeah.
Good first thing.
In any case,
through the list of SIPs that we have.
Martin, are you okay? Can you hear us?
He has a very concerned look on his face.
With meeting frequency, I just want to put out there that we should wait to evaluate if once a month is
maybe we can mute him for a second.
Just something like that, so that when people.
Okay, we'll mute him for a little bit. He just heard us, I guess. So
What I
was going to put out is, I think bootstrapping is going to take more time. So these first meetings will be very active, but I don't expect that going on. I think we should be able to keep this nice and short, but we might actually need to spend more time to get this all started. In any case, let's look at the SIPs. I don't want to distract that. I just want to say, in terms of the meeting time, once a month is good, but there's going to be this inclination that we need more because we'll have so much to do to start. But don't let that affect the meeting time later on. So that's all I want to throw out there. Anyway. Okay.
I have a clarification question about SIPs and slips. I thought this was slips only, but I guess it's been turned into both.
No, that's a really good point. I think that it shouldn't be both eventually, but I think that since we're getting going right now, and since there aren't any slips, it's going to be a pretty thin meeting. We're hoping to encourage some library proposals, but in the meantime, actually this is a really good point, is we should discuss what we should do about SIPs and whether it should be a different group or whether we just do this for now and try and get the thing moving and then figure out what to do with them, whether they need their own group.
Okay.
I'm sharing my screen because I'm going to bring up the. I'm terrible at multitasking, so if I'm talking, I can't type. So I'm going to bring up the actual Scala Lang SIP list. Are you guys seeing my screen?
Yeah, I see the screen.
Okay. So let's go to compiler language, Scala improvement process, and okay, here's the list of SIPs. So SIP 12 and SIP 16 are already postponed. SIP 19 has been not accepted, so it's really just 20, which is improved lazy vowels initialization, 21, which is spores, 22, which is async, and 23, literal-based singleton types right now. And they are, marked as sort of in process and active. Is that? Do we need any changes there?
So let's see if you take it from the bottom up. So improved lazy vowels initialization. So there's been some work on the Dotty side. As far as I know, there's been no attempt made to port that into Scala C, or do people know about something there?
Not as far as I know, no.
So who's the proposer of that SIP?
Let's have a look. Improved lazy vowels. Alexander Prokopek.
Yeah. I don't think he. Well, we should probably ask him what he intends to do with it.
Okay.
I have a little bit the impression that he's no longer that involved with it.
Okay, so I'll send him an email and find out what the status is, and I guess we can just tackle that one next time we have one of these. Or actually, that's another thing that's not on the agenda. But how do you guys want to communicate with this stuff? Are we just going to use say Gitter or Scala? Gitter works.
Why not?
Okay.
Or I don't know what people propose.
Gitter would be my choice. I like the immediacy of the chat. So Scala channel?
Maybe a separate channel for SIPs, so it's easier to look at the history later on and not see the rest of the Gitter chatter content.
Okay. So maybe a Scala SIPs channel.
Yeah. Sounds
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Is there a SIPs repo?
There should be.
I think there should. Yeah. Let's make a repo and then have the channel hang off that. This is all going to be very mechanical, kind of dry stuff. So, but it might be good to have documents and stuff like that stored in there.
Yeah.
So cool. All right. So that's action item there. Contact Alexander.
So question to Adrian: are there any cycles in the Scala team to sort of take this and port it into Scala C, or what's your opinion there?
About the lazy val one?
Yeah.
Well, I think if there's anything that we do, this one should be a high priority. I mean, off of the SIP list. Right now, I've been mostly spending my time on SIP 23 when it comes to sipping stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, we should think about it. I think we can. It's a little early to evaluate now because of the Java 8 stuff that we're kind of still have a lot of work to do on that with the default methods and so on. We want to get a sense of how long that would take, and once we have a sense of that, I think we could evaluate whether we have time for lazy vals. So probably around, or at least like early Northern Hemisphere summer,
Okay.
so maybe July or something like that. We should have a look at whether we have cycles for that.
But that means as long as we don't know, we shouldn't close it, I assume.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this one has a good chance of making progress, or at least I'd like to see it make progress. But at the same time, if it has the right status, it could attract people working on it. I mean, if you say we're busy working on it, you can be sure that no one else will be.
Okay.
Is there a customer, one or more like major customers, either internal or external to TypeSafe EPFL that really care about this one?
Adopt a lazy val or adopt a SIP, yeah.
We can advertise. Let's send this video to everyone.
I'm starting to wonder whether we need a label that's like needs a buddy or something like that on there.
Well, so if that's almost
SIP.
like saying it's abandoned, right? Like it's saying we see this as having potential, but we don't have an active champion, and we need somebody to drive it to completion. And we can't do it
for team members.
Yeah.
Something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Looking for team. All these are good. All these are good ideas, at least for team members.
Maybe Victor would know if this is considered important to ACA.
Got it. Check with Victor as well. Okay. All right. So that next one would be 21 spores. That's pretty active, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, just...
So, as a question, the last two were definitely Scala features, Scala language features. This one, I believe, is a actual slip, right? Or do spores actually involve a language change, or are they just a macro?
Oh, yeah, so this might be... Do we actually want to... Oh, God, how would that work? Do we want to move it to being a slip now?
That's a good question. Are macros library or are they language?
I think we need a subcommittee for that.
That are internals like async does, then it gets more and more easy, you know.
Well,
True.
I think they're at least slippery, so maybe that's a good sign that they belong in the other category.
I would argue that we have to treat macros as libraries temporarily. Like pickling is a library, you know. Pretty much a bunch of libraries I know use macros, so I would be inclined to treat this as a slip because it's not changing the language itself. There might be compiler work that we need to expose into macros that, you know, but that's not really like a language change, I would argue.
Actually, so I think I agree there to say, well, if it's macros by itself shouldn't be language, that should be library if it's not the compiler. But for this one, I'm not sure because I think that it requires some work in the closure conversion of the compiler to make sure that once we have verified that something is a spore, that the compiler will not actually install any redundant outer pointers or stuff like that.
Yeah, that is true. That's.
But not every compiler change requires a SIP, right? I'm not sure that puts it in the SIP category alone. If the language and the spec are still the same and it's just compiler internals, I think you could argue that is also library.
Yeah. I think I would probably pull the compiler with the language. Otherwise, it gets difficult. I don't know. Because otherwise it would be compiler and tools or something like that. A language and tools. Well,
so I think the reality is
useful to leave this in the language compiler part.
If you have to touch the compiler, this is something that will require more hand-holding of whoever's implementing it, and it's going to be a lot harder to get it through, which was, I think, what the slip versus SIP designation was. Like, libraries should be easier to get through because you don't have to touch the compiler. You don't have to worry about all the interactions with all the other compiler features. It's just a library. So in that vein, I think you're right that it needs something that denotes that the bar of entry is higher or harder to get to. Whereas getting a well-designed library is a little easier than actually getting the compiler to a point where some new feature is stable.
And here, what we're after, what's more, is a sort of guarantee that we can put in the spec. That we say, well, if you write a closure and it doesn't close over any variables that are done used globally, then you will not essentially get references to local state. for the compiler. Because if you see it this way, if we wouldn't have the guarantee, then what good would it do if the compiler did that? If the next version compiler would be allowed to break it, then nobody could rely on it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, I'm convinced.
Okay.
So leave it where it is.
Very,
Yep.
very.
Okay.
I would add an action point to maybe explain that the Allen slip is for light or something like that, or as well.
Alice, I like that. Allen slip is for light. Or yeah, limited. I don't know.
I don't think we should call it limited.
Okay.
Lickety. It's a lickety slip.
Okay, let's put Josh in charge of marketing for the slip.
Have you seen my title?
I think he just volunteered. Yeah. We can change that.
Okay, so I guess async is the next one.
I think that one's basically ready to graduate. I just need to lock JSON up somewhere to actually add the stuff to the spec or write some stuff down where needed. But actually, this is probably the purest slip in this list.
So
okay.
this is a library, right? Like this one we could purely say is a library. All right.
That one can be moved to a slip. Okay. Move to slip. I'll talk to Jason about that and how to do it. We haven't done any of this before, so it'll be an interesting test case to see how something changes across to being a slip. And literal-based singleton types. 23.
So that's something that came out of the type level project initially, and then I spent some time with the implementation. It's I think as far as prototype status goes, it's good, but it definitely requires a lot more thought on the spec side and on usability choices and stuff like that. I talked to Miles about it briefly at Scala Days, but we could definitely use some input from users and some experience there.
What are some of the choices that we still have to make there?
Well, so one of the things is that how aggressively we infer these singleton types, like in a local scope, for example. Like if you're putting stuff in an H list or an H map, and everything is in the same expression, it'll work because we infer literal types by default in there. But then if you put like the key or something like that in a local val, you will actually need to assign a type to it because it'll widen the type when inferring it. And so that fits what we currently do for regular singleton types. But I wonder, if Miles had a branch of shapeless and refactored it using this, how often would he actually need to write all those types? I don't know.
I don't see another choice.
Yeah. No, probably not.
If you would write var x equals 0, x equals x plus 1, you'd trigger type error, right? So.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't do it for vars, but for vals, like for local vals, I think.
Oh, okay, for vals. Okay, I get it. Yeah.
I think shapeless is probably var free, and most code that uses those methods would also be, just purely local vals.
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I see. You get you. Yeah. Did somebody evaluate yet? If we did that change, what would break?
Yeah, I've experimented with it a little bit. There's a couple things, like small things that break, but to be honest, I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it would be feasible to do this, but it would definitely require some experimenting.
Yeah.
And I don't really have time right now to really look into bigger code bases and see how they could use this feature. So I think there's something that we need to attract some potential future users to help validating the ideas.
Well, I think this is a perfect forum for doing that, right? I mean, this is certainly my hope of doing something like this, is to say, hey, this is the kind of mechanism, for better or worse, that we have. anyone can get involved with it and volunteer time to help out. And so if there's something like that, this is the place to say it. So, we need to get this tried out on some big code bases. And I think, that if there's people that hear that call to arms and do it, that also tells us something about the popularity of the SIP idea as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think possible use cases would be a good list of people to approach and see if they have some time to experiment with it.
Possibly. Oh, yeah, Spire. Yep. Okay.
I like the Scala JS one there. That's pretty clever.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. And shapeless, of course. Well, I'll definitely ping. I can take an action item to ping type level back and just see where they are. And if there is any potential that somebody could look at the that example with Spire, for example, and shapeless. Scala JS, do we want to sort of feel out somebody there?
Yeah, I mean, we should definitely ping them as well.
Okay. Okay, that's good. I'm writing this down on my phone. Ping type level and Scala JS on 23.
So I'll paste a link to the pull request on my own fork of Scala that has the current implementation. And
I just think on the type inference side that if we do that, so that means if we infer the non-widened type for vals, then that should be a general thing. So if you write val x equals y, then x should have y.type as well, right? So because otherwise it's not consistent.
Right. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
That could get rid of quite a few type annotations in the compiler, I see, referring to global, right?
Yeah. I can't think of something that it would actually actively break, but that's just because I don't have a vivid enough imagination, I think.
Yeah.
We should definitely give it a shot, I think.
Excellent. All right, so I guess I've only got one more question on the pending SIPs then. It sounds like 20, 21, 22, and 23 stay as is. 19, which is not accepted. How long do we keep a SIP on the list that's not accepted?
3 years is probably enough.
Why do you want to drop it? Well,
The question is if you want people to see, there's a section on completed SIPs that have made it through. I think 19 is the only one that we've denoted being rejected ever. So it's more about having people not submit the same idea. So I think it needs to move to a list that's not under pending SLIPs. It needs to go into the rejected SLIPs or SIPs list.
Okay.
I think that's what it needs to do. Yeah, because we rejected it for a reason, and I think the reason is actually on the SLIP. If not, we need to write down why. But the idea would be so people can see what we aren't accepting, so they know what makes something get through and what doesn't. If it was rejected because nobody worked on it, that's different. Someone could pick it up and make a new SIP. But if it's rejected because we don't think it belongs in the language, that's a different story, right? Then we don't want people proposing the same feature.
I think it's basically saying it should be a SLIP.
Yeah, it says it should be implemented with macros. So, yep. Okay, so I'll move this to. I'll introduce a new rejected SLIPs or SLIPs not accepted. Sounds a little bit more friendly.
Well, we already have something called rejected. So
we do?
You could just rename it to something more friendly, like not as cool SIPs or something.
SIPs that weren't fast enough. Okay, so that sounds good. All right, I'll put that on the list as well. Okay, so I guess that.
Oh, sorry, just a second about. Yeah. We should probably nuance whether we would never accept, this, because if you say it's rejected, it still sounds like if someone else would want to submit a SLIP for this, we wouldn't accept it. And I think the only reason we rejected it was because we hadn't thought of slips as a concept. So now if someone else was going to come up and polish this and submit it, we would accept it, right? Or no? Or we would consider it.
If they would submit this as a library, we would have accepted it, I think, as opposed to a language change. And yeah, we need a way to denote that, essentially.
Yeah. So in a sense, it's not just a categorization, but we said, well, this thing should essentially be implemented with implicits rather than being put in the spec and being done by the compiler.
Right.
So it's a different approach to the same. While the goal is shared, the proposed approach is different. So I think it would be cleanest to just make a new SIP for that, or SLIP for that right now, but just give it a new number.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that sounds good. So that I think probably the progression, the sensible progression here is create a Scala/SLIP repository, attach a Gitter channel to it, and then for stuff like that, I won't make any sudden moves to changes to the site without sort of mentioning it and discussing it on there for anyone who's interested.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. Go ahead.
I would propose that we consider using pull requests for SIP proposals. So basically, to propose a SIP, you open a pull request on that repository, and the discussion of that pull request is basically the discussion of that pull request.
Okay.
I think that's a natural way for people to propose things and lower overhead than adding things to the website.
That's very true. Oh, I like that. That's really good, Adrian. Yeah. Okay, for proposals, comments on...
Okay, so it would be a pull request to what repo?
To Scala/Scala SIP or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
I
so
think,
it would be Markdown and...
Yeah, I like that. Okay, yeah, that can definitely be done. I agree. I think that would be a much lighter way of doing it. Are we going to stick with the current stuff for SIPs? Sorry, for now.
Oh, I would do it for both.
Okay, do it for both. All right. Sounds good. Okay. So the only other things I have on the list here, so we can bring it to a swift conclusion, quorum size. It's quite likely if we set this as a constant meeting time that there's going to be people who aren't going to be able to make it each time, probably different people. Are we comfortable with setting a quorum size of like 4 or 5, and if there's at least that many, we go ahead and have the meeting as usual?
Sure. How many are we now?
Well, and that's going to be another thing. So I did invite already. I asked Heather, and she'd be interested, but she wasn't able to make this one. The other thing is we probably just need to sort of give some thought, and this can be a discussion that happens on the SLIP channel as well, of the makeup and the people involved and that sort of thing. But I consciously, and I do realize that this is very heavy. I've done a lot of this, so a lot of it's my opinion right now, and that shouldn't be the case for very long. But I really was looking for people with what I consider sort of the right temperament. And that pretty much is people who realize this is going to be a lot of mechanism and not very interesting work. It's largely going to be thankless. So
I just want to say that my temperament is very different at 7:30 in the morning. The way I've experienced me in the office is not going to be really accurate for morning meetings.
You haven't had enough coffee yet, have you, Adrian?
Yeah, and I'm kind of like Bender when it comes to coffee.
All right, so so we've right now, I think in the list of people, how many have we got? I want to say it's about 7 or 8 people. So maybe if a quorum of 5 is good enough to sort of shoot for. Where's the calendar? Are you guys seeing this, or am I just broadcasting the slips still?
We're seeing this.
No, we're seeing your
okay.
calendar.
I'm writing down everything I see.
Yeah.
Don't do that. It's all recorded, so you don't have to.
What are you
Oh,
bothering?
that's right. It's on YouTube.
4, 5. Yeah, I think we've got probably 7 people right there. This is something, again, I'll form the channel. I suspect that there'll be a lot of discussions over the next month or so. The main thing, I think, to do this one was to get it on people's radar that we're doing this and to sort of show what the kind of material that we'll be doing, which is pretty dry, is for this one. And then the last thing I had is, public reviews. I know this is something that came up in discussions a few times. Do you think we need a formal public review period for a SIP and slip? Or, I mean, there's already on the discuss page, I don't know, or on the SIP page, there's the discuss turned on. I don't know if people already knew about that, but if you go down to the bottom, actually that one says, oh yeah, there it is. There's the discussion. So
right. That was actually one of the reasons I suggested doing pull requests, because those all come in, comments on those come in the same channel that we normally monitor. So I think the discuss channel, one of the issues with that was that I never saw those emails. Anyway, that was just an operational thing. Yes.
No, that's right. It's early in the morning still for me, so I didn't connect the two. Yeah, that would be a much better way to handle this. You're right. So it sounds like we probably don't need a...
Laura, do you want to say something? Or?
Yeah, I think that, can you not receive the discuss comments if you follow the website on, like you have to create a discuss account? That's how I started receiving comments for the TypeSafe blog. So if you create a discuss account and then follow this, follow that page, then you should be able to receive email notifications when people comment.
Well, I never figured that out, but yeah, I should probably do that.
Yeah. No, I think that's how you can manage that.
Okay.
Since the audience for this is programmers, I think Adrian is probably typical in that the PR stuff is familiar and the discuss stuff is somewhat unknown.
Yeah.
I think that's dead right. Well, now that I guess that does raise the question. I don't want this to go on any longer, I promise, but it does raise the question: what do we do with the existing SIP and slip proposals? Do we ask that they get moved to the GitHub side of things, or?
I think that would be good.
Okay. It shouldn't be too
hard. Probably
I mean,
do it ourselves. Yeah.
They're already
in Markdown.
Yeah. Okay. So that, I think, wraps it up, unless I missed anything. Any other business?
We need a mascot.
Well, let's just put SIP and slip together. I think if we can come up with a visual for that.
It would be a banana.
A banana. What do you call it? Banana daiquiri.
A
banana daiquiri. Because you're sipping a slippy thing.
That's good.
Yeah, I knew we could count on you, Josh.
Yeah, slippy is a very Pittsburgh word, Josh. I don't think anyone outside of Pittsburgh uses that word.
I didn't even know it was a word.
It's not.
Well, except Pittsburgh.
Look, when you go drive and it's raining, the roads are slippy. That's what it is.
I wish the roads were more slippy here.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dick, thanks so much for pulling this together. I know you want to go to your beach, which is right behind you.
Yeah, thanks for rubbing that in the whole call.
Yeah, I'll just share where I am right now. That's not a painted backdrop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'd like to propose that all meetings are held where Dick is right now in the future.
And he'll fly us in.
We could probably make that happen. I'll talk to the owners, see if they're amenable to a slip meeting here.
Just explain clearly what it is.
I'm sure once they understand what it is, they'll be super supportive.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. They'll love it. They're really into the Scala community side of things. Right. All right. So obviously I'm on vacation this week, so I will start on some of this stuff, but probably most of it will happen next week. If people are watching this, don't expect a channel to show up today, because I'm going to go and sit on the beach instead. But All right, thanks, guys. I think this was valuable, and I think it's good that we've got this sort of moving again. I think it'll build a bit more confidence in SIPs and slips.
That's right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot
Thanks,
for
man.
keeping the
Thank
initiative.
you. Bye-bye.